710 KRV Talkback, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, home of the Iron Microphone, streaming live on KURV.com, 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK, also website talkbackonline.com. A bit made this week on the Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky's filibuster. He was filibustering the appointment of Brennan to the CIA. Of course, it was just the vehicle. I don't think particularly made much of a difference towards Senator Rand. Much about Mr. Brennan being approved or not, it wasn't even close. But there's all kinds of things associated with this, as we're going to discuss. I found it interesting how relatively little news coverage was assigned to the coverage. Not to be unexpected, because the media is just the useful dupes of the government, and therefore anyone that is opposed to the government will get short shrift, so to speak. Anyway, because of the filibuster that Senator Rand Paul did, the term filibuster brought back to many of us the famous filibuster that was in the movies, in the movie Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, a movie directed by Frank Capra, I think in 1939, so quite a while ago. So these are issues which are not new. The movie basically relates Jimmy Stewart as Jefferson Smith, a young and idealistic person whose father was a newspaper man who was killed by people that he was writing against, and they murdered him one day. So that's kind of the lead-in, talking about the willingness to sacrifice for what one believes in. So a position opened up as senator in the state that Mr. Smith comes from, and the state is not mentioned in the movie. He is chosen specifically because he's considered naive. It turns out that the power brokers of the state are trying to confiscate a large tract of land for their own benefit, and it is the same tract of land that Mr. Smith had wanted to be used as a kind of a Boy Scout type of place, funded by the state. And so therefore, when the bill came forward to give the land to the power brokers of the state, the powers that be made sure that Mr. Smith was absent from the floor of the Senate when that happened. When Mr. Smith became cognizant of what had happened, he tried to do something about it. At first he failed, and finding himself in a distinct minority, he decided to go the route of the filibuster in order to try to cast light on the issue at hand and try to get the senators to reverse their position on giving the land, the public land, to the power brokers in the state from which he came. However, unfortunately, the other senator from the state, Senator Joseph Payne, played by Claude Rains, the great Claude Rains, has been in the thrall of the power brokers for nearly 20 years. Though he himself began as a crusader, he, over time, bowing to the needs of the electoral process, would require the funding of a Mr. Taylor, who was the power broker in the state. And in order to remain in his good stead, of course, he had to go along with what Mr. Taylor wanted. And one of the things Mr. Taylor wanted was to get that parcel of land. And so Jefferson Smith, the senator, the naive young senator played by Jimmy Stewart, decides to filibuster in order to bring forward this what is going on, finding himself completely isolated from all help. This is the only route he thinks he can take. So he begins this filibuster, and the jaded Senate, of course, is just doesn't much care for it because they have their other things to do and their mistresses to go visit, and so they really don't like this idea of having to vote delayed by this filibuster in what seems to be a foregone conclusion. So the filibuster starts to gain notoriety throughout the Washington and United States and even parts of the world. And so we're going to play a little bit of a clip here from the movie towards the end when the Mr. Smith has already been filibustering for a number of hours and starting to gain some traction with the media. So we're going to play a little bit of what the world is listening to as far as the newsworthiness.
Smith has now talked for 23 hours and 16 minutes. It is the most unusual and spectacular thing in the Senate annals. One lone and simple American holding the greatest floor in the land. What he lacked in experience, he's made up in fight. But those tired boy ranger legs are buckling, bleary-eyed, voice gone. He can't go on much longer, and all official Washington is here to be in on the kill.
No, sir, there's no compromise with truth. That's all.
This is Jimmy Stewart playing Jefferson Smith.
When was it? A year ago, it seems like.
It is. I'm afraid terrible things are happening. I've got to stop him.
They're listening to him. Anything might happen now.
Girlfriend in the gallery.
That's all I ask. Get up there with that lady that's up on top of this Capitol dome. That lady that stands for liberty. Take a look at this country through her eyes if you really want to see something. And you won't just see scenery. You'll see the whole parade of what man's carved out for himself after centuries of fighting. And fighting for something better than just jungle law. Fighting so he can stand on his own 2 feet, free and decent, like he was created. No matter what his race, color, or creed. That's what you see. There's no place out there for graft, or greed, or lies, or compromise with human liberties. And if that's what the grown-ups have done with this world that was given to them, then we better get those boys' camps started fast and see what the kids can do. And it's not too late. Because this country is bigger than the Taylors, or you, or me, or anything else. Great principles don't get lost once they come to light. They're right here. You just have to see them again.
Mr. President, will the senator yield for a question?
Can we hold it for a second?
Will Senator Smith?
So the point is the underlying principles. It's not the specific issue itself, whether it's a boys' camp being taken, property being taken by a powerful broker for his own personal use, or whether the issue is simply isolated to the unconstitutional use of drones and killing people. It's the underlying principle that says the Constitution of the United States was created in order to guarantee the liberty, freedom, and independence of the individuals in the country, and that the government had limits placed upon it by the Constitution, by the ideology of the nation, that did not allow arbitrary action by the government to do as it pleased as in an autocratic type society, in a society run by kings, by the divine right of kings. And see, that's the important point. The important point is that this is simply an example of government acting in an autocratic manner, whether it is through the use of drones in the killing of individuals without due process, or whether, like in the movie, it is the taking of land by government officials that have been paid off by a powerful broker. And so that is really the point that we need to get across. It is that it is the underlying issue of a country run by constitutional process and a constitution that places strict limits on the government, specifically to guarantee the liberty, freedom, and independence of the citizens. Let's go on and play some more.
You for a question. The senator has said repeatedly that he is speaking to the people of his state. He has been waiting, as he so fancifully puts it, for them to come marching here in droves. Would the gentleman be interested in knowing what those people have to say?
Here it comes, dear.
Yes, sir, you bet I will.
Mr. President, have I permission to bring into this chamber evidence of the response from my state?
Is there objection? You may proceed, Senator.
Page boys.
Come on, boys, on your feet. All of you.
So at this point, they're bringing in basketful of letters that have been written purportedly by individuals of the state, asking Mr. Smith or demanding that he quit the filibuster because he has been portrayed as an unscrupulous individual, falsely portrayed. And so this is the means that they wish to get him to stop speaking, because he has become an embarrassment to the Senate, though I don't know if they're capable of being embarrassed, frankly speaking.
I can't stand it. I
So
can't
the
stand it.
important thing is that how the media is nothing other than the useful dupes and fellow travelers.
Demanding that he yield this floor. I invite the Senate to read them.
The useful dupes and fellow travelers in the media, which was then as it is today. Nothing changes. The journalists are basically useful dupes and fellow travelers of government. They are simply the propaganda arm of government, and through their machinations, they are able to convince the general public through their propaganda and indoctrination techniques that Senator Smith needs to stop speaking. In order for the power brokers to get their way. So nothing at all changes. We can see this. I think what's really funny is how the media tries to present themselves as noble fact finders, investigators, when in fact they're really pretty much a bunch of simple-minded fools who are gullible. And and when I say that, right away Katie Couric comes to mind, and all Tom Brokaw and Dan Rather and all the other simple-minded fools that speak for the autocrats, and we somehow believe because they're on television. Are we still on with that thing? Okay, we can just keep going with that on television, media, radio, or newspapers. So that somehow, because they speak from that forum, that they somehow have some kind of credibility or legitimacy, which of course they do not. They're just basically non-critical thinkers who can't see beneath the surface. Pretty small and foolish people for the most part. So right now, was he still looking through the stuff? So he's going to start. He's looking through, and he's seeing all of these telegrams and letters which are demanding that he stop speaking.
Lost cause, Mr. Payne. All you people don't know about lost causes. Mr. Payne does. He said once they were the only causes worth fighting for. And he fought for them once. For the only reason any man ever fights for them. Because of just one plain, simple rule. Love thy neighbor. And in this world today full of hatred, a man who knows that one rule has a great trust. You know that rule, Mr. Payne. And I loved you for it just as my father did. And you know that you fight for the lost causes harder than for any others. Yes, you even die for them. Like a man we both knew, Mr. Payne. You think I'm licked? You all think I'm licked. Well, I'm not licked. And And I'm going to stay right here and fight for this lost cause, even if this room gets filled with lies like these. And the Taylors and all their armies come marching into this place. Somebody will listen to me.
At this point, Mr. Smith has collapsed to the floor, and he's fainted because he's been up there such a long period of time. So this is the example.
He's okay,
of,
just fainted.
The way the Senate functions. So, see, I'm gonna. We can stop it right there. Now, can we go to Rand Paul's deal? Can we do that? Rand Paul filibustered for 13 hours. I'm just going to give a little, just the beginning of what he was speaking. It's parallel. I guess I'm sure that Senator Paul is quite aware of the movie and was seeking a similar effect. Are you ready? Okay, this is Rand Paul beginning his filibuster.
I rise today to begin to filibuster John Brennan's nomination for the CIA. I will speak until I can no longer speak. I will speak as long as it takes until the alarm is sounded from coast to coast that our Constitution is important, that your rights to trial by jury are precious, that no American should be killed by a drone on American soil without first being charged with a crime, without first being found to be guilty by a court, that Americans could be killed in a cafe in San Francisco or in a restaurant in Houston or at their home in Bowling Green, Kentucky, is an abomination.
Okay,
it is
that's
something
fine.
That should not and cannot be.
So the point, once again, is the Constitution and the government acting outside the Constitution, whether it is in taking land and giving it to a power broker, as in Mr. Smith goes to Washington, or the unconstitutional killing of Americans without due process. The point is the abrogation of the stipulations within the Constitution by the very government that is meant to uphold the guarantees of the Constitution. But I find that in the concept of the lost cause, all greatness comes from lost causes. And all lost causes are always held by a very few people. That's why the cause seems to be lost. The lost cause of flight, of an airplane being able to fly, of a heavier than air machine being able to fly, that was considered a lost cause. That lost cause was championed by a very small number of people who were laughed at by those in authority and by the intelligentsia at the time. The lost cause of an electric light bulb, the lost cause of the automobile, the lost cause of going to the moon. So many apparent lost causes because the possibilities were held by of achieving the goal were held by so few, and so many of others laughed at them because of the lost cause. The lost cause of the American experiment, of the American Revolution. Now there is a lost cause for you. A bunch of colonists, civilians, going up against the strongest military in the world for an ideal. There's a lost cause for you. But we must understand the reason causes appear to be lost is because of the vast majority of those who stand in opposition to the promoter of the lost cause. It's always going to be that way. But we must understand that or be aware that how many lost causes have actually borne fruit. Sometimes it may take a long, long time until that they do. The question is always asked about the individuals. What is the point? What can we do against the British Army? What can we do against the United States government? And at times it does appear to be a lost cause. But that doesn't mean you should quit. I mean, the whole honor of fighting for a lost cause is because it is a lost cause. And there doesn't seem to be much chance of winning, but you're willing to make the great sacrifice to your own life for a ideal that's worth more than an individual's life, at least to that individual. That is the honor and the greatness of fighting for the lost cause, because it seems to be such a lost cause. The media, of course, with their poll taking, is exactly anathema to the lost cause, because the media promotes the majority point of view. Whether the majority point of view is the Earth is the center of the solar system, or whether the majority point of view is that we want a welfare state and we want the government to take away our guns, a means of self-defense, it is the media that uses their polls, which is the antithesis of the lost cause. The poll is the cowardly way out. It is the majority rule. It is mob rule. That is what the lost cause is. Now, we can go back to the movie and continue on that part where we left off. And we're going to see what happens at the end. So we can go ahead and play that.
I'm not fit to be a senator. I'm not fit to live. Expel me! Expel me, not him. When he gathers a fraud, it's a crime against the people who sent me here, and I committed it. Every word that boy said is the truth. Every word about Taylor and me and Graft and the rotten political corruption of my state. Every word of it is true. I'm not fit for office. I'm not fit for any place of honor or trust. Expel me!
Okay, that's fine. That is Senator Joseph Payne seeking redemption. A chord has been struck in him by Jefferson Smith, his junior senator from the state. Senator Joseph Payne comes to realize what he used to be and what he has lost, and now seeks redemption for the errors of his ways. And so, so the spark of decency, the understanding of what the country stands for, what the Constitution is, the responsibilities of the representatives of the people in guaranteeing their rights under the Constitution, that has been buried deep within him, buried and almost snuffed out, but not quite, is rekindled. That understanding is rekindled by the young Jefferson Smith, and Senator Payne now becomes once again aware of his beginnings, of why he became a senator, of why he's a senator in the United States, and his oath to defend the Constitution. He comes back to that realization, which had been buried by the mud of what Washington, D.C. had become and is to this day, which is not representative of the people nor a defender of the Constitution, but as an autocratic body. But yet, within some, there remains this spark of the greatness that once was, of what the country was meant to be. And so he comes to the realization and an epiphany of understanding of what he's supposed to be, of what he once was, and he is ashamed of what he has done, in which he has betrayed himself, his own ideology, and he lashes out at himself. He accuses himself of being unworthy. The senior senator, the respected Silver Knight, as he's referred to in the movie, he comes to the realization of what has happened to himself as a human being, as a senator, and he lashes out at himself. He flagellates himself in seeking redemption. And at least that. So at least there's something within that person, an awareness, an understanding, a coming to a level of consciousness, a higher level of consciousness, beyond the mundane, beyond the jungle, as referred to, the jungle of that we are beyond the individuals in a jungle, that we have a higher aspiration, a higher understanding of what it means to be a human being beyond our base instincts. Now compare that. Of course, this is a fiction. The movie is fiction, and so the redemption is such a sought after finality to fiction. So to how would you say, to invigorate the individual, that to elevate us to a higher level of existence beyond the base instincts that consume so much of our lives, that there is something particular about mankind and humanity which allows us to rise above the basic instincts of the animal world, and so often lost in the lust for material gain. So in this movie, it takes us to that redemption. That is the key here, the redemption of Senator Payne, becoming aware of what humanity is, what the desire for liberty, freedom, and independence that the country was founded on, those principles. Now compare that epiphany, compare that seeking redemption, and then becoming aware of it and incorporating it into yourself. Compare that to the corrupt and disgusting Senator John McCain from Arizona, who, even though Senator Rand Paul is a member of the same party, you have John McCain, the disgusting and just terrible John McCain, who represents everything that is bad in the government, coming out immediately and ridiculing and making fun and attacking what Rand Paul is doing. So simple-minded is John McCain, the failed military person, the failed presidential candidate, the insider who is having dinner with the fascist Barack Obama at exactly the same time that Rand Paul is staging his filibuster. John McCain, who will be forgotten not long after he leaves the center stage, is so simple-minded and so bemused that he attacks Rand Paul on the issue of drones, when Rand Paul is talking about something much more important and greater than the single issue of the unconstitutional killing of Americans by drones by a fascist president. It is the understanding of what the country's all about, what the Constitution stands for. But so simple-minded is John McCain, so befuddled, so ignorant, so lost, so materialistic, so hungry for power, that he doesn't understand the underlying principle. He doesn't understand what is really going on here. It is not simply the killing of Americans by drones. It is the undermining and destruction of the very basis of the country, which is encapsulated in the Constitution, based upon the ideology that's written in the Declaration of Independence, of individual rights, of limitations of government, a nation created to protect the liberty, independence, and freedom of the individual. It doesn't understand that when you take away the rights of an individual, you've taken the rights of everyone, taken away the rights of everyone. When the president is allowed to murder without the due process conferred by the Constitution, that gives him the right to murder anybody, by definition, that he himself or she herself comes forward with. In other words, it is the president then who decides who can be killed and who cannot be killed without due process. How is that completely anti-constitutional? It's the question of the undermining of the Constitution, because if you can undermine the Constitution in one instance, then where do you draw the line? It doesn't really matter if it's going to be a rare occurrence or not. It should be a never occurrence, because it's certainly not rare to the person who gets killed by the fascist president. To that person being killed, it is certainly not rare. It is absolute. And so there you have John McCain of the Republican Party, which is why the Republican Party is such a traitorous and backstabbing group. It is nothing but big government, nothing but the arm of the Democrat Party. I have to go to a break. 7 KURV. Talk about Dr. Lawrence Gelman. Hold our microphone back after the short break. Okay, we're back. I'm going to play the last little piece of it because I think that's really the best part of the whole movie, and it's really the key. It's really the key to the movie, and that Jefferson Smith is able to sound the alarm, but more importantly, is able to strike the chord within the corrupted Senator Joseph Payne to rekindle the understanding of what the country is all about. So we can go ahead and play that again.
He said once they were the only causes worth fighting for. And he fought for them.
This is Jefferson Smith.
For the only reason any man ever fights
about to pass out. So we're going to have that scream again, I guess.
Because of just one plain simple rule. Love thy neighbor. And in this world today full of hatred, a man who knows that one rule has a great trust.
And we go a little bit to where the Senator Payne is.
And I loved you for it just as my father did.
It's the last minute or so.
He's okay, just fainted.
Yeah, right about there.
The place of honor, just it's coming!
We're working on it. Okay, just let it run from there. Okay. So, Senator Smith has fainted, and people all gathering around him. So now comes Joseph Payne's going to be breaking light bulbs in the hallway after he's left the Senate floor. That's what that noise is.
I'm not fit to be a senator. I am not fit to live. Expel me. Expel me, not him. When it comes to fraud, it's a crime against the people who sent me here, and I committed it. Every word that boy said is the truth. Every word about Taylor and me and Graft and the rotten political corruption of my state. Every word of it is true. I'm not fit for office. I'm not fit for any place of honor. Just expel me.
Okay. All right, so compare that response to the reptilian response of John McCain. And I think that's just like the best part of the whole movie. Great acting, great directing by Frank Capra, Jimmy Stewart, and Claude Rains. Claude Rains is just such a great actor, just made so many great movies, does such a great role in that particular movie, and the ending is just amazing. So, of course, it's fiction, so the good guys win in the end. But today we have John McCain and the Republican Party, which stands in contradistinction to the good guys entirely. You know, just as a final note on this, I find it interesting that the two-faced, backstabbing, low-life Republicans that had dinner with the fascist himself, Barack Obama, at exactly the same time as filibuster is going on. I guess that would be analogous to the disciples of Jesus eating with Pontius Pilate after the crucifixion. So there you have it. I guess we're going to take a couple calls, I suppose. We have John who's been hanging on for 7 KRV. Thanks for calling. What do you have to say, John?
All right. Now, when Bob Hope's dead, but he was doing the USO tour, this British girl comes on and says, I want to meet your king, LBJ. And then Hope says, well, he's like a king. Now we have another king. This is the Democrat king. And then McCain, he gets in the picture, and Palin gets in the picture, and you get a mix. And we're getting closer to 1984. Remember the book by George Orwell?
Yes.
We got the drones now, and technically they can put a drone on an American in the United States right now.
Right. It just, well, we live in an autocratic society with a fascist government, and that's all there is to it. So we're living in
That's
Nazi
right.
Germany or the Soviet Union. It's one or the other. But remember, the media in the Soviet Union and Nazi Germany said everything was great and the government is wonderful, and Hitler's the greatest thing ever since sliced bread, and so is
Yeah,
Stalin.
right. Hitler was the greatest, or your Uncle Joe Stalin was the greatest.
Right. So now we have Barack Obama, the greatest. Well, he's nothing but a thug and a fascist, and it's a disgusting turn of events. But once again, there's no one on our side. There's nobody who speaks for us. We have no one that represents the ideology of the American people. You have, yes, no party at least. You have some isolated individuals, Rand Paul
but there
and Ted
there
Cruz.
is no party anymore. The Republican Party.
No,
No fraction.
no. It's a party of big government that has no relationship to the Constitution. So we are on our own, but that's okay. The revolutionaries were on their own as well, so we're on our own, and the odds seem to be insurmountable. But as with all lost causes, sometimes we come out ahead.
Well, it ain't over till the fat lady sings, and she hasn't sung yet.
Well, we got plenty of fat ladies in this country, I can tell you that. That's another issue.
Yeah, that's obesity.
Okay. Thanks for calling,
All
John. Now we have Jesus calling. 7 KRV, thanks for calling. What's your comment? I can't. You're going to have to call back. Connection is no good. Can you move somewhere? Is it a cell phone?
With Ron Paul's filibuster, do you see Ron Paul?
I'm sorry, Rand Paul? Oh, lost. Okay. Now we have Scott calling from, I guess, the island. What's up, Scott? 7 KRV.
Hey, good afternoon, Doctor. Actually calling from Port Isabel. I know better and live on the island, especially this time of year.
Okay. Excuse me from a landlubber, but okay.
Yeah, Doctor, this almost, you talking about movies. Well, first time I ever saw anything that had to do with drones was the original Terminator, where the future man was trying to fight off the government along with the rest of the people of the country, and the drones were after all the people who were rebellious against the government and fighting the government. They were out there shooting and killing them and finding wherever they are, and they were killing their own people, their own citizens. But the problem with our government is it seems most people react in a bad manner when they get angry. That's your number one thing right there, is anger. And our government's got a lot of people in this country angry, and that's a game that Barack Obama likes to play. I mean, I've never seen a president threaten more than Barack Obama. Every time he doesn't get his way, he stomps his feet and starts threatening his own citizens, his own politicians, the people that work for him. And what ends up coming down is the government starts getting pretty paranoid that, hey, we're going to end up having a revolution in this country, makes the Civil War look like nothing. Or like you said, we're going to end up having states break up, and you'll have Arkansas and Texas and Oklahoma and Arizona, and you have a bunch of states like that all organized, and they're going to tell Washington, come and get us now. We got our own army, and we'll defend ourselves. And the government's starting to get real paranoid, and the problem is, on the computers and the way they got information and everything, is the government can use that information. Like, it's almost ridiculous to be on Facebook or give out too much information nowadays, because if the government feels threatened, they got basically a right now, they can go find out where you vacation at and have somebody pick you off there, or they can just sit there and bring a drone in and take out your house and say, hey, Homeland Security, that man was a terrorist to the United States. Not a terrorist to its citizens, but a terrorist to the government, because our government brings down on what it reads.
Well, you're exactly right, because ultimately what is the government perceives a threat not to the country but to itself. The only reason the United States uses these drones, you think those congressmen and senators care about you and me if we get knocked off? They don't care about us. They only care about themselves. And so it's going to be what they consider a threat, just exactly what you said. Now, what do they consider a threat? Well, maybe it's a terrorist today, and maybe tomorrow it's somebody who doesn't really care for Barack Obama. And they can craft any kind of story that they want through the media. And in fact, exactly in the movie, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, they forged papers and concocted this case against Jefferson Smith, making it appear as if he was corrupt, and therefore then they spread that story throughout the media. And the same thing can happen here. I mean, they can make you to appear that you're a crazy individual that's making bombs in your basement, and they took you out before you did something dastardly, and then they can create all the evidence to demonstrate that you were actually a mad bomber trying to that they stopped just in the nick of time from causing untold damage to Port Isabel. And they've done that before, of course. Nothing new in the government fabricating evidence to justify their position. My gosh, they fabricated evidence to get us to go to war. They can fabricate evidence to anything. So who's going to, the purpose of the court, of the due process, is not just that you have the means to get a process to be judged by somebody. That's not what the due process means. Is you have your say, that you can go to a medium where you can defend yourself against the accusations against you. That is what due process is all about, so that you can tell your side of the story. And Barack Obama says, I've already decided what your side is, and I don't like it, so I'm going to knock you off. And it's amazing to me how the American people, how so many of them can actually go along with this usurpation of power that says that the president and his cronies can go out and kill anybody. No, that's exactly what Stalin did. Stalin made a list of individuals that he didn't like for whatever reason and had them killed. That's what he did. And how's Barack Obama different?
Doctor, what's going on in Afghanistan right now? The drones they've used in the Middle East, from what I've gathered throughout and most of it's probably propaganda, but a lot of it is truth, the 98% of what the drone attacks have done in the Middle East right now are on civilians and innocent bystanders, and only 2% have taken out really enemies of the state. And our government works on propaganda, and that's big time. And if you get right down to it, the government's the only one that's above the law. They're the only ones that's above the law. And
well, the government,
as it goes. The government, the Constitution every day, they do not follow it.
Right, because the government feels it is the law. What is the divine right of kings? The divine right of kings is the king is the law. So therefore, whatever the king says is the law by definition. So we have a constitution that we're supposed to understand that the Constitution is the basis of law and not the individual politician, which is why the Constitution has been completely undermined and corrupted, because the government, like all autocrats, wants to make it seem like they are the law. And so Barack Obama has taken it upon himself to be the law. What's amazing to me is that the majority of the Republicans actually went along with it. That, to me, it shows you how isolated the American who believes in the Constitution is today. We are, and apparently it was a lost cause. The media, the system of public education, the entire political class, the entire entertainment industry is anti-constitutional in ideology. Anything else?
Yeah, most of the media that's out there right now is pretty much bought out by the Democratic Party. I mean, there's very little bit of conservative or constitutional media that's out there anymore, because everybody's paid off. And like you said, the Republicans, half of them are paid off by the Democrats, and the Democrats own them. And the other half, like Ted Cruz or Mark Rubio or Rand Paul or Yee, any of those guys, they're true conservatives and Constitution guys.
I wish it was half.
But they're covered up just like Ron Paul was during the election by propaganda that's bought out by the media that the Democrats own.
Absolutely, and I wish it were half of the Republican Party. I think it's closer probably to 20%.
Well, I'm an optimistic, and I try to see things in a little better way of thinking that we got some future. But when you start seeing how much control our government's taken over our people, and how much executive power this man's using without going through the Congress whatsoever, it seems to me like what's happening here is like you and I said last year, we're ending up to becoming another Nazi Germany. And all those people in the Middle East, don't think for a second that we didn't murder them. Us or the security people that we hired there that were mercenaries, a lot of those people over there, we murdered a lot of people in the Middle East. And those people are more ticked off at us now. I mean, if we had even a third of the civilians that were murdered in the Middle East by the United States Armed Forces, we'd be dropping bombs on people right now and jumping up and down. But over there, the people are just praying is all they're doing, because it's getting bad. It's really, really getting bad. And we're threatening Iran right now, too, again. and Barack Obama's part of that threat. He's got so much propaganda going in the Middle East. We should be totally out by tomorrow, not in another year. And we're causing more murders over there right now every day.
I agree with you entirely. In fact, all the problems that the United States faces today were created by the United States itself. The only reason the Middle East is a flashpoint is because the United States made it a flashpoint. Without the United States involvement in the Middle East, there would be nothing going on there whatsoever, and they could get along with their lives. But it is the United States arming both sides, the United States playing both sides against the middle. They're the ones who've created the issue that wouldn't exist without the United States being there in the first place. Thanks for calling, Scott. Now we have Mikey calling from Edinburgh. 7 KRV, thanks for calling. What do you have to say?
I just want to say thanks for having me on. First-time caller. They call me the guy, and really you're a good man, Dr. Gelman. You're bringing to light things that people, they think it only happens in movies. I remember in Terminator, they used to have the HKs, the hunter killers, and that's what a drone is, unfortunately. And the gentleman who was on earlier, Scott, talking about propaganda. For those people who know who Edward Bernays is, man, he'd be applauding the United States right now for the great job they're doing and the propaganda techniques that they're using, really, which is out of his playbook, And it's just incredible to me that good folks like yourself don't get heard more, and that there's not more people awake to what's really going on.
Right, exactly that. The media only exists to serve government. Anything else it does is to entertain us in between. It's bread and circus. And that's it is not there to inform. It is there to indoctrinate through propaganda. And that has been since the beginning of media. So anything else?
No, I just bravo to you, kudos to you, and for everybody out there listening. Spread the word, guys. You need more people to plug out and tune in.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling. Appreciate it. But what is the natural way people think? Well, the Bible, if for nothing else, is important to gather an understanding of the way human beings, the psychology of the human being 3,000 years ago, and how reading it, they say, well, we're the same. Well, of course we're the same, because human psychology doesn't change. We may be driving around an automobile instead of a horse and buggy, but the psychology of the human being does not change. We have the same emotions, anger and hate and love, lust and all that. We have the same problems of gluttony, slovenly pride, all of that. We have all. There's nothing. Human psychology is and does not change, even though the environment we live in may change. So what does it mean to be a human being? Well, we are animals, but we are also beyond animals. We think beyond the basic instincts. Animals live to eat and breathe and drink and procreate. And that's their life. Survive. That's what their life is. That's why the elephant and the monkey live today exactly the same as they have always lived. But the human being does not. Even though we have our basic instincts, we still have a component that makes of being human that allows us to think beyond the mere necessities of life, to go beyond the mere necessities of life, to think at a higher plane of understanding, which allows man to fly and create all the wonderful things that we create, which no other animal can do. But despite our higher level of consciousness, we still have our basic instincts. And so it is the catering to the basic instincts which allows dictators and tyrants to control, which allows genocide to occur, and concentration camps, and mass murder and war. It is the our basic instincts that result in that is certainly not the higher understanding. But in order to get to our basic instincts, it is important. We must indoctrinate the higher understanding to make us succumb to our basic instincts. And so when I say let's look at the Bible, I say look at the Bible apart from its religious component, but look at the Bible as an understanding of human psychology. So we read Samuel, and I will read this from Samuel so you can understand human psychology, and it does not change. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel and said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not follow your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel. Samuel being the prophet of Israel. And so Samuel prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, "Listen to all that the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me, as they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly, and let them know what the king who will reign over them will claim as his rights." Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, "This is what the king who will reign over you will claim as his rights. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your male and female servants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, but the Lord will not answer you in that day." But the people refused to listen to Samuel. "No," they said, "we want a king over us. Then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles." When Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. The Lord answered, "Listen to them and give them a king." Thus, ever thus, and thus it is today. People prefer to be slaves and to be taken care of. And if Barack Obama isn't a king, then I don't know who is. We'll be back after this short break. 7 KRV, Talkback, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, home there on microphone, streaming live on KURV, on the website. What is that website? Talkbackonline.com. Back after this short break. (710) KRV Talkback, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, home of there on microphone. The website is talkbackonline.com. A caller inquired about my book. My book is in, the editor has it. I think the editor is about half done. It'll probably take another week or so. I'm not sure if the right word is a publisher. I have a printer that's going to be doing it. I don't know how long it's going to take them to actually print it. I don't imagine but a few days. So therefore, I think it's possible that the book will be ready for distribution by the end of this month of March. I'm not going to be selling it. I'm going to be giving it out. It's when it's actually ready to be passed out. I've been working on it for some time. There's no other book like it. I've looked. There's all kinds of books on Supreme Court decisions, but they really talk about the impact of the decision more than the decision itself and how it was arrived at, and investigating and making a study, an examination of the decision itself. I've not been able to find any book that has that. Even books by so-called conservatives, they seem just to rail against the and say, well, this doesn't exist in the Constitution. But I break it down. I break it down specifically in taking out passages of the bills, of the decisions, and comparing that to the Constitution and the understanding of what the Constitution is really meant to be. So there's nothing else like it out there, which is whatever. So we were talking about kings and gods and the Bible and all that. Useful dupes and fellow travelers. I refer to that a lot, and maybe I need to explain what that is. A useful dupe and fellow travelers, these are terms that I don't know when they originated, but I do know they're most commonly used, applied to the so-called intelligentsia in primarily the United States and Western Europe that promoted and believed in the Stalinist Bolshevik revolution and what was going on in communist Russia. Of course, Stalin would be killing people, but saying it was necessary for the good of the state, that these were counter-revolutionaries who were trying to overthrow the government, which was trying to lead the country to a people's working paradise. And of course, if you didn't agree with the way he was doing it, they had you killed. But also they had to justify the murder by saying that you were a counter-revolutionary. That all of the travails that were forced upon the Russian people and others in communist nations and dictatorships was a consequence of the remnant of counter-revolutionaries that were undermining the attempt of the great and glorious government to create this heaven on earth. And Stalin, you look at Stalin, there's an angel for you, maybe more like Satan. And so the useful dupe and fellow travelers were those in other countries that fell into that propaganda and believed it and promoted it themselves, primarily in the fields of academia, in politics, in the media. A useful dupe and fellow traveler is simply someone who's gullible and believes what is being told. The reason, and of course, why particularly are those in the media, attorneys, politicians, and those in the entertainment industry. So why are the useful dupes and fellow travelers concentrated in that segment of society? And the reason is that it's not that they're stupid. Okay, it's not that they're stupid. Obviously there's plenty of smart people in the legal field. There are plenty of smart judges. There are plenty of smart people in the media. It's not a question of being stupid. It's a question of education. The training of a journalist, of a politician, of an attorney, of an entertainer is not in critical thinking. They don't understand causality. They cannot connect dots. Everything to them is random points in the universe for which nothing connects to anything else. And so they are prone to opinion. Now let's take a look at the media. Everything there is opinion. The poll, what is the biggest thing in the media? The poll. And what is the poll? Well, it's opinion. Opinion, uninformed opinion. Opinion, on the top, what do you think? It doesn't matter if it's an informed opinion or someone who's done an investigation to determine. The truth is never important. Do you like or do you not like Barack Obama? This is an opinion, okay? Oh, well, majority like Barack Obama. So they try to make that the truth. Does that make Barack Obama a good president? Does it make Barack Obama a good person? Well, of course not. You go to Nazi Germany in the 1930s and you ask the people, you like Adolf Hitler? The majority said yes. 80% voted for him in his last election. But what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's just opinion. But there are the people educated to believe in opinion. And what is a movie? You like a movie, you don't like a movie. You like a book, you don't like a book. You like a painting, you don't like a painting. It's opinion. A plane will fly. That's not opinion. You can't look at a plane flying and say, well, it's not flying. It's flying. It's fact. that painting is good or not good. Well, it's an opinion. Evidence of that is even more exemplified by something which is dissed as being worthless in one age becomes very valuable in another. Van Gogh. Nobody liked him when he was alive. Now his paintings cost millions and millions, if you can even find one for sale. Why does that happen? Look at these movies. Some movies people consider great, no one watches. Other movies are considered garbage, and everybody go, Transformers. Garbage. Make millions and millions, hundreds of millions of dollars. Garbage. Nothing. Other great movies, of course, that's my opinion. Obviously, people think Transformers are great. It's the same way that people think that rap music is great. Okay, fine. But my point is that that's opinion. But the sodium molecule is not opinion. The sodium molecule is what it is. Maybe we don't understand it, but our opinion of sodium molecule is irrelevant. It is what it is. If we try to use a sodium molecule in a way that it was not meant to be used, we can pretend that it's functioning, but it doesn't. It has to be used according to its physical and chemical properties. If you try to use it in a way that's not consistent with its physical and chemical properties, then whatever you're trying to do is not going to work. Doesn't matter what your opinion is. But the worst piece of trash movie can be successful if there's enough opinion that says that it's good, but it's simply opinion. And so the useful dupes and fellow travelers belong to the classes of attorneys, judges, entertainment industry, the media, journalists, politicians, because they have they thrive on opinion. So the truth is really kind of irrelevant. It's perception that counts for them. When you're doing a scientific experiment, one step has to follow another or the experiment will not work. You just can't do whatever you feel like doing. There has to be a certain discipline and order. That is not consistent with the non-critical mind. The non-critical mind cannot understand how a war on poverty can actually create more poverty, how giving food stamps can lead to indolence, how providing welfare can lead to, how giving money, how government controlling education, how government giving money to education can actually worsen education. They don't understand how eliminating standards doesn't make things better, it makes things worse. That opening schools to all, regardless of qualification, makes education less free. They don't understand all that. So they don't connect it. They don't giving money to a mother having children out of wedlock. They don't understand that means more children out of wedlock. They don't understand that. And so there's no connectivity. So they're useful dupes and fellow travelers because they don't understand, they cannot connect the dots. The government says we're having a trial of this individual because he's a counter-revolutionary. So the people believe, so those who believe in opinion believe in authority. Authority by man. Those critical thinkers who understand that there are natural laws, understand that man's authority is nothing. It doesn't matter what man says. Man, King Canute, go out and stop the tide, cannot stop the tide. Doesn't matter that all your sycophants think you can stop the tide. The king knew, even then, he knew he could not. He went to the shore, put his chair on the shore and told the tide to stop. The tide did not stop. But people think Barack Obama can solve the problems of the economy, even though he himself has never had a job in his whole life. So, and so you have these useful dupes and fellow travelers who are so gullible that they'll believe what man in authority says. That's why you have your Dan Rathers and your Katie Courics and all these others, simple-minded, foolish individuals. Barbara Streisand, I don't care how great a singer. In fact, I don't like her singing. But, she's simple-minded and foolish. Why are so many entertainers simple-minded and foolish? Well, for one thing, they're really they are really kind of stupid. All they can do, they're just puppets at following direction. Because they're good at following direction and pretending to be something that they are not, acting. The more simple-minded they are, the better of an actor they often will be. Because they have nothing on the inside and not constrained by rational thought. They allow themselves to be molded into any shape that they can be put into, for the most part. I mean, there are others who understand the craft, but for the most part, they're just kind of simple-minded blobs of clay to be molded by a director. And so that is, so those who are not versed in critical thinking, attorneys, judges, those in the entertainment industry, journalists in the media, politicians, they are gullible and easily fooled, hence the term fellow travelers and useful dupes. And they are manipulated by those who do have an understanding. Stalin manipulated these individuals to get them to believe that he was a Democrat, that Mao Zedong was an agrarian reformer, the butcher of 60 million, an agrarian reformer. And there are members in government today who still believe the same thing, particularly in the Democrat Party. The useful dupes and fellow travelers, so many of whom are supposedly represent us, but really are emissaries of the central government to impose their will upon us. And so Katie Couric, useful dupe, fellow traveler. Dan Rather, useful dupe, fellow traveler. Our local representatives, useful dupes and fellow travelers. That is the situation we find ourselves. Anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about global warming, which we haven't discussed in a while. Things which I have discovered since my famous and notorious Hoax of Global Warming DVD, which is still available, by the way, for anyone who wishes to have it at no cost. The underlying principles are the same, in that it's a concocted crisis by the government for no other purpose than to control the lives of the American people. Why is man-made global warming nonsense? Well, because man's puny efforts at production and the combustion of fossil fuel is so insignificant as to have no value whatsoever. The Earth's atmosphere consists of primarily nitrogen and oxygen, neither of which is a greenhouse gas molecule. A greenhouse gas molecule is a molecule which will absorb infrared rays, which is heat, which will then increase activity of the molecules, and the relative activity of molecules is what is temperature. And so the absorption of infrared rays by certain molecules will increase the temperature of the ambient environment. That is the greenhouse gas effect. Nitrogen, which is the dominant molecule in the Earth's atmosphere, has no greenhouse gas effect. Neither does oxygen. Interestingly, when you combine nitrogen and oxygen in the nitrous oxide molecule, that does have a greenhouse gas effect. So what does that tell us? It tells us it's not the atom that confers a greenhouse gas effect. It is the molecule based upon molecular structure. And so there are molecules in the Earth's atmosphere which have greenhouse gas effect based on the molecular structure, and those molecules are carbon dioxide and water. Now, they constitute 1% of the Earth's atmosphere. Therefore, 1% of the Earth's atmosphere is composed of greenhouse gas molecules. The dominant greenhouse gas molecule in the Earth's atmosphere is water. 95% of all the greenhouse gas molecules in the Earth's atmosphere are water. less than 4% of the greenhouse gas molecules in the Earth's atmosphere are carbon dioxide. But we need to go one step further. Most of the carbon dioxide in Earth's atmosphere is produced through natural means, metabolic processes in animals. You and I right now are producing carbon dioxide through our metabolic process, which we exhale in our exhalation. It has 5% carbon dioxide in what we exhale into the atmosphere. The primary sources of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere come from the breakdown of organic products. We, animals, plants, are organic compounds, which means we're made up of carbon long chain carbon molecules. When these molecules are broken down through natural processes, that carbon is combusted into carbon dioxide, and most of the carbon dioxide in the environment comes through natural processes. In fact, 97% of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere results from natural processes. Okay, so only 4% of the greenhouse gas composition in the atmosphere is carbon dioxide. And of that 4%, only 3%. Okay, so that means out of for every 10,000 for every 100 molecules in the air, for every 100 greenhouse gas molecules in the air, 4 are carbon dioxide, and 1/10 of that is produced by man. And so it's a very tiny component through the combustion of fossil fuel. There are about 400 molecules per million of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere, and 12 of those are produced by man. So based upon that alone, the combustion of fossil fuel is irrelevant as to the greenhouse gas effect. The environmentalists wackos say, well, even though 12 out of 10,000 molecules produced are by man is a small amount, that 12 is somehow the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, let's take a look at that a little bit. Well, first of all, carbon dioxide is a weak greenhouse gas molecule. Carbon dioxide in the Earth exists only in this gaseous form. To raise the temperature of 1 gram of carbon dioxide in the environment by 1 degree centigrade requires less than 1 calorie of energy, a relatively small amount. The primary greenhouse gas molecule in the Earth's atmosphere is water vapor. Now, water exists on Earth in all 3 physical forms: gas, water, solid. Gas in the atmosphere, water, solid, ice. The molecule is the same. The water molecule, the H2O molecule, is exactly the same molecule whether it is in the gaseous form, in its liquid form, or its solid form. The only difference is how far apart the molecules are. The farther apart they are, the less. Well, with water, it's a little bit different because actually ice carries a larger volume, the same number of molecules. It's one of the weird things about water. So liquid water, as the molecules of H2O spread farther apart, becomes gaseous. But it requires energy. The input of energy is required to spread those molecules apart. Now, liquid water, to increase the temperature of liquid water 1 degree centigrade, requires 1 calorie of energy. In fact, that's the definition of calorie. A calorie is the amount of energy required to raise the temperature of 1 gram of water 1 degree centigrade. That's the definition of a calorie, which is the unit of energy. Okay, so a calorie, that's what it takes. Now, but to change 1 gram of liquid water to 1 gram to the vapor stage requires 540 calories. And when you change, and that's called the specific heat of fusion. So the specific heat of fusion or vaporization, to change 1 gram of liquid water to vapor requires 540 grams of calories of energy. So compare that to the heating up of 1 gram of water, 1 degree centigrade, is only 1 calorie. Interestingly, at the temperature that water needs to attain, which is energy, which is molecular activity, that's the energy needed to change 1 gram of liquid water to vapor, the energy conferred upon water, which gives it the temperature, which is, remember, temperature is molecular activity. So for the molecular activity to be sufficient to drive apart the molecules enough to reach the vapor stage requires 540 calories of energy. Water changing at that point where water is warm enough molecular activity to become vapor, the conversion to vapor converts from liquid to vapor, but without a change in temperature. It's an amazing thing. Water vapor is at the same temperature of water at its just before water converts to vapor. And so the temperature doesn't go up. So at 500, if you add 540 calories of energy, and the temperature doesn't change. That's the amazing thing about water vapor, and that is the primary molecule of causing the greenhouse gas effect. So we need to understand that the important molecule in the Earth's atmosphere for the greenhouse gas effect is not carbon dioxide, but water vapor. And to show you how important that is, we need to go to other planets. If we go to Mars, Mars' atmospheric pressure is 1/60th that of Earth's. That means its molecular concentration is much less than that of Earth's. Now, even though the molecular concentration in the atmosphere over Mars is 1/60th that of Earth's, the predominant molecule is carbon dioxide. In fact, carbon dioxide makes up 99% of the molecules in the Martian atmosphere. That means that the number of molecules in the atmosphere over Mars, even though it's less than the number of concentration is less, the concentration of greenhouse gas molecules in Mars is actually greater than Earth's by 70%. The concentration of greenhouse gas molecules in Mars' atmosphere is actually 70% greater than the concentration of greenhouse gas molecules, including all greenhouse gas molecules on Earth, is greater on Mars by 70% than on Earth. Now, Mars has a daily temperature variance of about 100 degrees Fahrenheit or so. On Earth, the variance is about 30 degrees Fahrenheit, more or less. Question arises, if Mars has a greater greenhouse gas effect than Earth, why does its temperature variance greater than Earth? The greenhouse gas effect is most accurately monitored in temperature variance. The Moon, which has no atmosphere, has a temperature variance per day of 500 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, Mars, which is farther away than the Moon from the Sun, actually has warmer evening temperatures than the Moon. Why? Because Mars has an atmosphere that provides a greenhouse gas effect. And so a greenhouse gas effect not only so it keeps the planet warmer as well as cooler than it otherwise would be. And so that is why Earth does not get as hot as the Moon, even though we're in the same region of space, because the greenhouse gas effect also blocks sun's radiation as well as conserve sun radiation. So it has two effects, which need to be understood if we're going to understand the greenhouse gas effect and climate. And so Mars, so the greenhouse gas effect is not most accurately measured by the high temperature of a day. That is not how you measure greenhouse gas effect properly, though that is what the media wants to use inaccurately. The greenhouse gas effect is measured by the difference between the high and low temperatures in a day. The greater the greenhouse gas effect, the smaller the difference between the high and low temperatures in a given day. That is how you measure greenhouse gas effect. So therefore, the greenhouse gas effect on Earth is greater than on Mars. That explains why the variance in Earth's temperature is smaller than the variance on daily temperature in Mars. But if Mars has a greater greenhouse gas concentration than Earth's, why does Earth's temperature variance per day is smaller? And the reason is that Mars' primary greenhouse gas molecule is carbon dioxide, whereas on Earth it is water vapor. And that is the critical difference. Water vapor is a far, far more potent greenhouse gas molecule than carbon dioxide. Why? Because of the heat of vaporization, a property that all molecules have, but that exists on Earth with only one molecule. In the natural environment of Earth, the greenhouse gas effect of that only water vapor is in the form that allows the heat of vaporization effect to be in effect. And we'll get back to that after this short commercial break. 7 at KRV Talk, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, 1-800-580-8255, 1-800-580-TALK. Streaming live on KURV. My website is talkbackonline.com. Be back after the streaming live on KURV, if I didn't say that, back after this short break. Okay, we're back. Sunday KRV Talk about Dr. Lawrence Gelman. Oh, I thought we had a call. Gone? Okay. So we're talking about global warming and the myth of global warming as it is portrayed in this country. And so because of the latent heat of fusion or vaporization that the water has, because only water of all greenhouse gas molecules exists in different stages on Earth, then comes into play the heat of vaporization with water vapor, which does not go into play with carbon dioxide, because carbon dioxide only exists in its gaseous form, and therefore that property has no effect on Earth. Interestingly, that property is far more important than the specific heat, which converts which raises the temperature of carbon dioxide. Because the temperature that raises the amount of energy required to raise carbon dioxide 1 degree centigrade is a calorie. The atmosphere is much more prevalent with carbon dioxide, so with water vapor. So water vapor prevents significant increases in the ambient temperature, thus not absorbing enormous amounts of heat without a change in temperature, converting liquid phase water to vapor phase. That absorbs almost all the heat produced in the environment and maintains a stable temperature. Now at night, what happens is that water vapor will release that heat when the radiant energy goes away, and it gives up enormous amounts of heat, which maintains a stable surface temperature throughout the planet of the Earth. That stable surface temperature prevents the Earth from getting as cold. The water vapor is what prevents the Earth from becoming 250 degrees below Fahrenheit, as does the temperature on Moon, which exists in the same region of space as we do, but has no atmosphere. As the water vapor gives up heat energy, it condenses and becomes liquid, and that's what we recognize as dew. That's where dew comes from, in the morning, if you were wondering. And so water vapor is much more important than carbon dioxide, or water is much more important than carbon dioxide. In fact, carbon dioxide is kind of irrelevant if you consider how much energy can be consumed by water vapor compared to water and water vapor versus carbon dioxide. That is why Earth has so much more effective greenhouse gas effect. Now, that takes us to the interesting thing about deserts and humid regions. The reason it is, remember, you watch the movies, I forget how cold the desert gets at night. Why does the desert have a larger variance in day-to-night temperatures? Because it doesn't have water vapor. It has the same amount of carbon dioxide as everywhere else, but it doesn't have the water vapor. And so water vapor will block sun's radiation so that humid areas don't get as hot as the desert, but then water vapor absorbs radiation, heat energy, and therefore conserves heat energy and heat, which is why the humid areas don't get as cold at night as do desert areas. That is why the temperature difference in day and night is greater in the desert than in humid regions. If you look at the temperature gradients, you will find that humid regions such as New Orleans or Houston will be about 10 degrees narrower variance than in the desert. Sometimes going even more than that, but on the average, I think it's about 10 degrees throughout the year. That is specifically because of the properties of water vapor. So if you're wondering why the desert is hotter in the day and cooler at night compared to other regions which are actually in warmer parts of the country. For example, Death Valley is actually at a different latitude than New Orleans, but the Death Valley gets hotter than New Orleans, even though it gets less sunlight than New Orleans, simply because the atmosphere above Death Valley it has less water vapor. That's where it gets hotter, even though based upon where it's located on the Earth, it actually should be cooler than New Orleans. So, okay, we have a call, 7 KRV, Charlie from Harlingen. Thanks for calling. What do you have to say? Yeah.
Hello, doctor.
Yeah.
I refer to you as Lawrence of Arabia.
Okay.
Thought you might enjoy that.
Well, I do, but I think we'll still. Okay. And what do you have?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, the global warming is one of the religions of the public school system.
Yeah.
And I am running for the school board in Harlingen this year.
Okay.
And I know there's some people from Harlingen that listen to this, and so when you see Charlie on the ballot, he recognizes that the public school system has its own religion. They try to force out the Lord Jesus Christ to bring in their own religion, which I'm opposed to.
Well, you're exactly right. Of course, the reason the public schools do that is they're nothing but an arm of the government, and the government doesn't want competition from religion. That is why communist countries eliminate religion, because communist countries want the people to believe that government is God. Barack Obama wants people to think that he's God, and but the Republicans don't agree because Mitt Romney thought he was God. So there's the conflict. But you're exactly right about that. The tripe that the media puts out about the separation of church and state is obfuscates the real purpose of elimination of religion from school. Interestingly, what you say is that if one looks at the performance of public schools and SAT scores, rates of pregnancy is another thing, the rate of pedophile in our public schools, you will notice an increase in all of that from the point that religion was taken out of the public school system, which I found pretty, but of course, most people cannot connect those dots. So good luck to you over there. I hope that, and don't be afraid to state your opinion. I think that it motivates more people than the media would have you believe. Anything else?
Well, can I give my last name?
Go ahead. It's up to you.
Charlie Zeisel. I'm running for the school board in Harlingen this year.
Okay.
And my platform is the Lord Jesus Christ.
Well, I hope you win, but you're up against the forces of darkness. So, thanks for calling. I appreciate it. Now back to the global warming deal. Everything has a purpose. The issue promoted by the government as regards global warming as an environmental issue is a canard. It has nothing to do with environment. It has everything to do with control. The government wants to be able to dictate your energy utilization. The government wants to dictate how warm and cool you can keep your houses, how much you can drive. The government wants to, if they control your energy expenditure, they control your life. The government is evil. Barack Obama could not explain the greenhouse gas effect to a child. He doesn't have the brains to know how to do it. He doesn't even care to know how to do it. The point is, he just wants to control your life. Now, that's a frightening thought, having a mediocrity like Barack Obama control your life. That's almost as frightening as having a mediocrity such as George Bush control your life. So, on back to the greenhouse gas effect. The greenhouse gas effect on Mars is not as effective as that on Earth, having a temperature daily variance of 100 degrees Fahrenheit compared to Earth's. And as we have explained, I hope in sufficient detail, the effectiveness of the greenhouse gas effect can be monitored most accurately through the variance in daily temperature from the high to the low. It has really nothing to do with your high temperature or your low temperature. I mean, if it was up to high temperature, then Mercury has the highest temperature in the solar system, but it doesn't even have a greenhouse gas effect. So high temperature is not the way to determine the effectiveness of, or the effect of the greenhouse gas effect. It is the variance between the high and low temperatures of the day. Now, for Earth to achieve the same concentration of greenhouse gas molecules as on Mars, we would have to increase the greenhouse gas molecular concentration by 70%. There are right now, for every million molecules in the Earth's atmosphere, 10,000 are greenhouse gas molecules. 9,500 are water vapor, and 400 or 380, whatever it happens to be, 400 is carbon dioxide, of which 12 of those are created by man or produced by man. I'm not even sure why they say that. I mean, the way man produces carbon dioxide through the combustion of fossil fuels is exactly the same way that all metabolic processes work, essentially. The combustion of organic substances using oxygen to create carbon dioxide. I mean, that is what all metabolic processes are, whether it's you and I, our metabolic processes, or the burning of coal. Because what is coal? Well, coal is nothing but organic material which was once alive, compressed into a highly concentrated form, and which is, when combusted, releases carbon dioxide, just the way you and I are releasing carbon dioxide now. So who's to say what's natural and what's not? But let's just go beyond that. That produced by the combustion of fossil fuel are 12 carbon dioxide molecules of the 400 that are in the atmosphere per 1 million. Therefore, to increase the greenhouse gas molecular concentration in the Earth's atmosphere to equal that of Mars, we would have to create another 7,000 molecules of greenhouse gas molecules. Since only carbon dioxide is produced by man's combustion of fossil fuel, we would have to go from 12 to 7,000 just to reach the concentration on Mars. So if all the production of carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere produced by combustion of fossil fuels by man is 12 per million, and we need to go to 7,000, we would have to increase our combustion of fossil fuels by 600 times. 600 times more combustion of fossil fuels just to reach the level of Mars. The level of Mars doesn't have as an effective greenhouse gas effect as we on Earth have now. So even if we increase the combustion of fossil fuels by 600 times greater than it is today, and I don't know how we could do that, but let's say we did, we still would have a greenhouse gas effect less effective than Mars, or no more effective than Mars, which is less effective than what we have now, because of water vapor is the primary source of our greenhouse gas effect. And its effectiveness is not due to the process which makes carbon dioxide environment warmer. It is due to a different process. It is the greenhouse gas effect process is the heat of fusion, heat of vaporization, which is a process denied the carbon dioxide molecule in the Earth, because the carbon dioxide molecule in the Earth only exists in one phase, whereas the water molecule exists in all three phases: liquid, solid, and gas. So therefore, the whole debate of the greenhouse gas effect is completely nonsensical. But of course, it has to be, because it's a lie. Being a lie, it has to be nonsensical. What's amazing to me is how this lie is being promulgated, and so many people believe it. But they're the same people who believe Barack Obama should run the United States. Well, so it's a ruse, a deception, once again promoted by, guess who, the useful dupes and fellow travelers in the media, in the government, the entertainment industry. And lo and behold, who promotes it? Your entertainers, so-called entertainers, most gullible of all people. Your politicians and your journalists. These are the ones who promote the greenhouse, this malarkey about the Earth being made warmer through the combustion of fossil fuel by man. It's complete and utter nonsense. All we know is what we're taught, and therefore the public schools teach us all to be ignorant. Contradiction in terms, but that's what indoctrination is. Indoctrination is teaching you to be ignorant to the truth and to believe the lies promoted and disseminated through government. Government is housed by liars known as politicians. The word integrity and honesty and probity is not something often applied to a politician. The word criminal and base and low are much more commonly used when you talk about your average politician. Why does someone go into politics? They go into politics to control the lives of others. That's the only reason they go into politics, whether for good or for evil. It is not relevant. The point is that individuals go into politics to control your life and to control my life. Government exists to impose control. That is what government is, the means to impose control upon others. Therefore, limited government is a contradiction in terms. The natural machine, it's like, why do you have a race car? You have a race car to go fast, not to be parked. And so the natural, and so why do people drive race cars? To go fast using the medium of the race car, which is built to go fast. A parked race car is a contradiction in terms. You don't you don't go in a race car to be parked. You go in a race car to go fast. You go in a race car versus a regular car because you want to go faster. So somebody who wants to go fast goes into a race car because a race car is built to go fast. Those who want to control your life go into politics because politics is the means that people can control your life. It is a politician that populates government because the government is the machinery which allows the politician to implement their desire of controlling your life. Therefore, slowing a race car is a brake on what a race car does. Limited government is a brake on what government does. Therefore, it is something not intrinsic to the race car or to government. That's why you need a constitution. The Constitution is the brake to government. It's what stops the government from doing what it wants to do. People go into government to do... People go into government because government provides the machinery which allows the politician and the psychology of the politician to implement what the politician wants to do, which is to control your life. Get it? The Constitution was written to limit government because government needs to be limited because its natural tendency is to go fast, is to control your life. Politicians want to control your life, and they strain against the constraints of the Constitution, which limits government. That is why it was necessary for the politician to eliminate the Constitution. That is why the media and the system of education and the lawyers and the entertainers say that the Constitution is out of date, because it is counter to what they want. But the Constitution can never be out of date. It can never be out of date because the Constitution has nothing to do with the level of technology. It has to do with the relationship between the people and the government. And the relationship with the people and the government is a sum. And the sum is a fixed number, and that number is power. Power is fixed. All that can change is the amount held by the people or the government. The more power held by the government, the less power held by the people. That is why the Constitution prohibited the increase in power by the government. And that is why those who say that the Constitution is mutable and malleable always do so for one reason: to increase the power of the government. If you notice, every argument used by those who think the Constitution should be changed is in order to increase the power of the government over the people. Because the Constitution was made to limit the government. And therefore, to change it can only change it in one direction: to increase the power of the government over the people. And so all of those who say that the Constitution is mutable, they do so because they have an ulterior motivation to increase the power of government. We have time for one more call. Fernando calling from Harlingen. Thanks for calling. 7 KRV. What's your comment?
Yes, Dr. Gelman, a couple of comments. First of all, about global warming, I appreciate your explanation of it. I think it's brilliant. But my comment is the glory of God is intelligence, and it was He who created everything and gave us fossil fuels and an earth that turns what man produces, carbon dioxide, back into oxygen. Everything that's on the first surface of the earth, practically, all the greenery, can handle all the supposed pollution that man can create. He gave us the fossil fuel, the intelligence to use it, and look at the beauty that has come because of it. The United States of America, the greatest country, the shining city on a hill, has been produced because of the intellectual use of the fossil fuels the good Lord gave us. And of course, in order to believe that global warming really is an issue, you have to deny the glory of God. And what upsets me quite a bit is those who claim to be Christians and believe the global warming lie. And the same thing can be applied to the Constitution. The most brilliant document ever created by man was only done with the help of God, and it was put in place to as you said, put a brake on government. And what is government? Is those men who are elected to make decisions for us, supposedly with our best interest in mind, okay. And that has been long gone.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm out of time, but I appreciate your call. You're exactly correct. fact of the matter is exactly right. The only reason we have oxygen is because there's carbon dioxide. Thanks for calling, everybody. 7 KRV, Talk Back, Dr. Lawrence Gelman, talkbackonline.com, streaming live on KURV.com. You will hear things, and you have heard things on this program, which you will hear nowhere else. Rush Limbaugh, eat your heart out. Back next week.